performances down there, and we were listening to a lot of the local music at the time.
Much like you, Mana, a record holder, selling out Staples Center more than any other group, breaking Taylor Swift's record. So that's not an easy feat right there. So Mana, big shout out to Mana. Now, we also talk about fashion. Now, fashion, let's talk about your fashion choices. Maybe not back in like 96 when you were just getting down to it with the MLS, but today and when you were playing your off the pitch style. And then what was your favorite kit as well? Which kit? You had so many internationally and Homestead as well.
Well, I don't know if anyone remembers this. Maybe some of the older cats out there will remember that original U.S. soccer jersey with the stars and the jeans ties. Yeah, so there you go. Some of the artists, they remember it. That's one of those kits. When I first saw it, I was like, what is this? But now when I look back, I'm just like, it's a classic.
It's iconic, yes.
Yes, it is very iconic. It's a classic. It's one that's hard to get now, where if you see someone wearing it, you're just like, oh, there's an OG. There's someone that was there from the beginning before it was cool to kind of really get involved in soccer.
Right, exactly. And we're talking about fuel also. We know LA has a diverse culinary scene, and you've seen some international culinary scenes in Brazil, as well as England and all the other destinations you were able to hit the pitch. Let's talk about your favorite pregame meal and what's your go-to, what's your favorite food?
This is going to bore everyone. The pregame meal is usually pasta, and chicken. And I can tell you one thing, every player will tell you they're tired of pasta and chicken because we have it all the time, to just kind of that carbo load with a bunch of the protein to get ready, right before the match, or I should say a few hours before the match. And as far as, what I like now, once again, diverse in the makeup. I love Mexican food. So that's my favorite. I go to a lot of different restaurants, be it coming to downtown or going to, the Cha-Cha-Cha now that just opened up, or if it's some of the places that are near me, some of the trucks, with some of the local flavor. I love doing that. It's always so easy, comforting, and convenient.
So quite a bit of a change from the pregame meal to where you're at now. I guess being an analyst and the coaching role doesn't require the same carbo load and protein action, right?
Yeah, you can eat whatever you want now, and thank God.
The good news is you can always wash it down with a Coke Zero Sugar. Possibly the best Coke ever, so feel free. We got an ice cold one for you right there.
All right, try that.
Yeah, just saying, On that note, like I said, if we traveled up that 101 freeway, we'd head to Westlake, where it all began. Let's talk about Southern California soccer culture. Now, you have experience in the English Premier League as well as Brazil professionally, and of course, your 11 seasons in the MLS. But let's talk about your experience as a youngster coming up in Southern California and what the scene was like and how different it was when you traveled across the pond.
Yeah, it's the scene here has completely changed, just soccer in general. I remember the times where if I wanted to see an international soccer match, and this is going to shock a lot of people, I had to go to a Mexican restaurant. We had to pay a fee to get in, and they would kind of pay for it over satellite, and everybody would pack in, to that local restaurant. And that was the only way you could see it. And now you have all the youngsters here that have the opportunity that they can turn it on with, 20, 30 different channels and find, a soccer game. They can stream it, on an iPad or a phone, which is still amazes me to this day that I used to have to hunt down to see anything. As far as the actual game itself, and just as far as the playing the game and how different it is, or how different it was for me at the time, was going from the U.S. and the national team here to England. It kind of threw me in the first time of understanding what soccer was as a job. And it was that workman-like attitude where you don't take a moment off. You don't take time off. This is your work. You're getting paid to do this. And because you're getting paid to do this, we expect the best out of you and your performance. So that was kind of like that first thrown, into the fire of like, no excuses, get the job done. This is what it's all about. So it was very different than my next experience in Brazil.
Well, you definitely got the job done many times over. And let's rewind just a little bit and go back to what we mentioned as a UCLA Bruin. Now, you were in a fraternity as well, so I know that was probably not going to be a possibility across the pond. Like you said, that was profession and lifestyle combined. You got to get the job done. But what was it like now as an analyst of the Pac-12 network? What is the differences you see from when you were playing in the Pac-10 at the time to what it's like in the Pac-12 today?
It's definitely changed. There's more attention. You're starting to see more, even, I guess I would say, soccer-specific stadiums coming into effect at the college level. For me, it was very different, where we would just play our games wherever happened to be available. If it's a football stadium, a track stadium, whatever, that's where you're playing the match. But now you're seeing a lot more money come into the game. You're a lot more attention. I think you're starting to see as well the opportunities start to arise for the younger generation of understanding that if you play at a younger age, that you're going to have a lot more scouting at the college level to make sure that you get, some quality players. And the Pac-10 at the time, Pac-12 at the time, they have probably the best opportunities to scout because of this West Coast region is one of the best regions in the country. So you get top talent all the time. And I think that's one of the great things about that Pac-12 is that you see some of the better players. And it's an easier transition, I think, than most other divisions to actually go from the Pac-12 into the pros.
Let's delve into your international experience as a representative of 3 U.S. World Cup teams, the most U.S. appearances by any player on the men's national team, as well as in Olympics. What was it like to represent your country on the highest stage of football and soccer action?
Well, there's nothing like it. I think we have to understand that when you're called up to that level, when you wear that jersey, you are representing your country, where you go. And for me, that was such an honor, over all those years, because we were coming through an era where no one respected soccer in the United States. No one respected the U.S. national team. No one respected the various players. It was just about, okay, they're coming in, let's just beat them and get out of here. So I have to say that I was fortunate to be part of that generation where we finally started, making that change, that switch, where we started beating the opponents, where they were surprised, like, wait a second, this is actually a decent team that can get the job done. So for me, it was always an honor, and I love looking back and being part of that change of U.S. soccer, where there's just a lot more pride coming into it.
Let's stay on that note of change, and let's talk about, like you just said, respect. In 2002, CONCACAF Gold Cup. Tell me about that experience, what it meant to the U.S. and U.S. soccer in general to pick up that victory against our neighbors to the south, Mexico.
I think when we look at the 2002 Gold Cup, it's kind of like the first stake in the ground moment for U.S. soccer within CONCACAF, because we had some victories, against Mexico before that at the younger levels, and even in some national team matches. But it was always like, well, that wasn't a real game. It was a friendly match. Oh, well, this one didn't matter. But once we got to that CONCACAF Gold Cup and we ended up hoisting that trophy, that was kind of like the first time where we said, well, look at this. We are a team that needs to be reckoned with, that we are at the same level within CONCACAF, if not the top.
Yeah, the asterisk was definitely removed, so highly important. And let's talk about that in juxtaposition to where we're at today. Now, U.S. men's national team failed to qualify for the Olympics. However, they did pick up the Gold Cup victory, so we're trending back in the right direction. What are your thoughts on the current status of U.S. men's national team soccer?
Well, I think it's trending in the right direction, because, look, everybody out here knows when you look at the last 4 years, it's been a little bit desolate, as far as the national team level, because the U.S. team didn't make it to the World Cup, and that will always damage, or I shouldn't say damage, maybe hasten the growth of the sport, lessen the growth of the sport. It's needed to qualify because you have exponential growth after a qualification, because you have more money comes into the game, there's more interest in the game. You have the layman says, oh, what's this all about, this World Cup? And that just generates more people wanting to be involved in soccer. And if we can continue that, you see the game get better and better. As more money comes into it, you attract, more interest at all levels. From management and top level decisions all the way down to youth wanting to play the game so that they can have a career within the game. So as I see this generation coming up, that is a young generation that has a lot of talent that's already playing at top levels overseas. When we talk about the Pulisic's, we were talking about the Weston McKennies, the Tyler Adams. These are quality players that are going to top teams, continuing to play, so they're starting to excel even more. When they come back to the national team, we expect, and yes, we expect qualification in this next World Cup.
Well, let's talk about that money. Let's keep on that theme, because you transitioned your professional career after the EPL and Brazil. You brought it back home in the inaugural season of the MLS in 1996. Talk about that decision and how important your homecoming was.
It was probably one of the toughest, but one of the best decisions that I made, because for me, it was all about helping grow the sport in the United States. And I knew that MLS was coming. It was supposed to start, right after the World Cup, but it had to be pushed off. So there was a little bit of worry there. But myself, along with quite a few others, came back with the idea that we were going to get this kickstart this league within the United States, and it's amazing to see what it has come to this day, not only just with the league and the players, but when you have stadiums like this, being built. It was, I have to admit, it was a tough decision, because you're always thinking, what if this doesn't work out? What's going to happen? But we can see with everything that's happened now and over the years that it was the right decision in the end.
Yeah, you're one of the founding fathers, and let's touch about that, because 11 seasons in the MLS. Let's talk about where we're at today from 1996. As you mentioned, the stadiums, facilities, the respect, it's just a completely different game. You took part in that. You're responsible for much of that. Let's talk about where the game is today and how excited you are about that.
I'm extremely excited to see, where the level has come, especially for the players. That's something that I will always back. It's just the players, and you see the salaries and where it's going in the DPs, where you can put some of the top players in MLS, those designated player contracts, on par, with other professional sports within the United States. When you have players that are saying that, you can announce, yeah, we just signed for $5 million a year. I think, some of the young kids out here could probably say, yeah, they could probably live off of that. That's probably a decent wage,
Right.
So now we're at a level now where MLS has come up, where if you are a top talent, that you are making very good money. As far as the league itself, to see where the ownership has come from, instead of ownership that is, very well off for multi-millionaires, now we're talking about billionaires, coming into the league that already own sports franchises, that see the potential for this sport for the future, and are making sure. That's the important part. They're making sure that they are a part of it. They are lobbying to come into MLS. That's a note, and gives you an idea of these people that have all the inside info want to be a part of MLS. So I think the future is bright, for MLS and where it's going to be. And we talk about the beginning of MLS in '96 and those early years in the '90s. That's a good 20-some years away. I can only imagine what it's going to be like a good 20 years from now.
Yeah, the tables have definitely turned, like you said, from ownership to players and the respect. And I knew personally guys that were playing in the early days of the MLS that, they had to have off-season jobs. There was many of them that, they could barely get by. And now they're professional athletes then, but now it's truly respected as a professional athlete. And speaking on that, what are some of the young talent that you're excited about today? I know you coached in the AT&T MLS All Star Skills Challenge yesterday. What are some of the players you seeing? Wow, this could be the future of the MLS here.
Well, one for me is Ricardo Pepi, from FC Dallas. I was just with him yesterday. I had noticed him before with his performances against the Galaxy, and then seeing how comfortable and calm he was in certain situations. But also, I got to admit, the little bit of the cockiness that he had. It was nice to see, because that's what you want to see from the young guns, coming up. Is that they are a little bit cocky, have that bit of swagger, in situations where they're going up against, stars that are established already. When he was asked, and I can tell you, we were asked when doing the crossing and finishing, it's just like, okay, you're up for the crossing and finishing. Are you okay with this? And he just gave the look, and I can't say all of this, but everything that he said, but he was just like, yeah, I got this,
I got this. A fine line between confidence and cockiness, right?
Yeah, yes it is. Yes it is.
On that note, I want to rewind a little bit, hop into the Coke Zero Sugar time machine, and you played against some of the greatest. Now, I want to explain two experiences. I want you to explain two experiences. While you were playing in your early days in MLS, you played with some of your U.S. men's national teammates. What was that like playing against them there? And alternatively, when you were playing on the international stage, who was the person that you were like, I respect you, but God, I hate playing against you?
Well, for the part with playing within MLS against my national teammates, that was always interesting, because it was. I mean, everyone knows when you're playing against your friend, you actually get hyped up a little bit more, because you want to have those bragging rights. So it was taken to another level, because we knew winning MLS or winning games against an opponent, and you saw them in a national team camp, you'd always be able to talk that little bit of smack, but go, oh yeah, didn't we just beat you last week, or didn't we just win the cup over you, something like that. So that was always a fun time, interesting time. And then when you look about playing internationally against different opponents, anytime that I was up against the Mexican national team, I that was always a joyous time thinking about we're going to be playing them, but also we knew it was going to be a tough time. You know, the various, you know, players on that team, be it Campos, Hernandez, you know, there's so many, Inzaghi, you know, up top. There's so many threats that they had that I was always just like, okay, this is going to be a battle.
Definitely seemed like there was a little more sweat and blood left on the field during any of those matches. The border rivalry for sure. You know, with that, before I open the questions up to our audience here, I just want to ask one final question now. You're a father, and as you look out, you see a lot of youth here, and especially over the course of tonight's events, the 2021 MLS All Star Game, there's going to be several kids watching there today, potentially some of them future MLS players. What advice would you give outside of perseverance? What's something that was instilled in you in a long time ago? And then also, who was your mentor? Who was one of the persons or people that are critical for where you're at today?
All right, well, the advice I would give is, you know, compete. Always compete. You know, that's what it's about. You know, continue to compete and learn, you know, while you're out there, and understand that even in the defeats that there are opportunities to learn. You know, because not everybody wins. You know, you could talk about the best basketball players, football players. Everybody loses something, but you find that the best and the champions learn from it. So learn from those moments, you know, that why you lost, how you can do better. You know, those are some of the things. And in all honesty, it is about repetition. You look at, you know, some of the best athletes in every sport, and they talk about what they do all the time. It's repeating, you know, nonstop. You know, those things that they have to get better at. It's not just like, oh, they go out and, oh, I'm perfect at this now. You know, be it basketball, football, soccer, you know, they repeat it over and over. While you will see, if you go look at training sessions, you always see, and I always do when I look at youth teams and stuff, there will be the kids that are done, just walk right off, and then there'll be the ones that are doing a little bit extra. And you always notice the ones that are doing a little bit extra, they're around 2-3 years, you know, from now. It's the ones that do the little bit extra that find their way, you know, to the top. The second part of the question, what was that again?
Who was your mentor? Who would you say some of the people most responsible for making Cobi Jones who he is?
Yeah, there's a few people out there, and especially at the younger ages for me, because when I was growing up, there wasn't a lot of soccer, you know, so there weren't great coaches. Like my first soccer coach was like the local football coach, you know, so that gives you an idea, and that's a testament to how much things have changed, that you're seeing people that have played professionally coaching at every level of the game now. So for me, at a younger age, some of the people that came into my life later on, you know, were the ones that gave me those points of advice, you know, on how to approach the game. And one is, as we all know, the player, Eric Ronaldo, but his dad was actually one of those people that was involved in my early days of just getting that little spark, you know, because I've always found you can go on a path to try to be successful, and you can work hard, and you can continue and just kind of grind through it. But there's always seems to be like moments or certain sparks that kind of fill you with like the joy and understanding the joy of why you're doing it, that can take you for the rest of your career or for a period of time, that just kind of motivates you, you know, to continue on. And he was one of those players that I think hit at the right time that kind of let me go to that next level.
What an amazing forged map, bringing you right here to the stage at Beats, Cleats, and Eats. Now, without further ado, I'm going to let some of these fans fire off a few questions. Yes, young man, come on up here. What's your name, sir?
Hi.
What is it?
Carlos.
Carlos, what's your question, Carlos?
What's your greatest advice that motivates you to be the best in MLS?
What great advice can you offer that assisted you in becoming the best in the MLS?
I would say for me it was enjoy the game. And by that, I don't just mean that in the standard way you hear everybody say it. I think that's something that parents need to take to their kids, because if you're not enjoying the game, you're not going to continue to play the game. You know, and you have to enjoy the game even while you're playing it at every single level, even at the professional level. And that enjoyment can come from where, yeah, I'm just having a fun time kicking the ball around. That enjoyment can come from, yeah, I just beat my friend on the other team. You know, that enjoyment can come from a variety of different ways. But you got to make sure that you're having fun playing the game, because as soon as you don't, that's when the slumps come. That's where you see kids say, yeah, I don't want to play it anymore. They've got to have that enjoyment, because that's what stimulates you.
Wherever you can find that enjoyment, dig deep and find it. Yes, sir. What's your name?
Jeff.
Jeff.
How you doing?
Good.
Good.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
I'm not a big soccer person, but
So yeah, Jeff's asking, you have to be extensive in your workouts, obviously, playing soccer. What would you do for cardio, and what's the most common cardio practice for soccer players on the professional level?
Well, for soccer players, yeah, you have to be able to run a lot, and to be quite honest, it's a lot of running, just to build it up. It's kind of like what I said, where it needs to be repetitive. For soccer players, it's a little bit different because we're asked to sprint constantly. So it's basically doing that same type of training where you're just sprint, short rest, sprint, maybe a shorter rest, sprint again, rest, then maybe a long run, then a rest, and it's just kind of changing it up and just having that situation where you're always, tricking your body into making sure that it never has just like the same workout where it's a consistent run at the same time, because that's not how soccer is. You got to train harder than how you play.
My other question
Yeah.
is the World Cup at a higher level than the major soccer level as far as competition?
He's asking, competitively, is the World Cup the highest level of soccer?
Yeah, yes, without a doubt. The World Cup is the highest level. You could argue, that you talk about the team championships just because they have a better relationship with one another. You talk about Champions League.
Doesn't make it better player.
What? With the World Cup? Well, the World Cup is all the best players of a certain country coming into a tournament and playing against one another. That's what the World Cup is. The World Cup itself doesn't make you a better player. It's bringing in all the best players. It's almost like saying the Olympics, similar to saying it's the Olympics of soccer. But one thing that I do want to get at when we talk about the training and the levels for younger generations, anyone that's playing the game, this is something that I think is fantastic for everybody to learn. If you are and I'll do it at an education level, if you're in elementary school and then you're going to like junior high, what you train in at elementary school is a game. Sorry, other way around. What is a game at elementary school is training at junior high. What's a game at junior high, is a game in high school. And it's very important to understand when you're like academy and all that, and you're talking about you're playing in these tough matches, the hardest matches that you are in is training when you come to the second levels, the second tier. And that training, that hard training at the second level of any professional team, it doesn't even come close to what you're going to experience at the first level. So the games, those tough games, are just like a training session. So that's what we mean. But when we talk about you train harder, you have to train harder than the game, because it's always going up and up and up and up.
Train harder than the game. Great advice from Cobi. Now, I know you got a question. This guy won our trivia question. What year was the NLS introduced to the U.S.? And he got it right here in 1996, and he got a T-shirt. He did get the Liga MX first shirt, first game. It was long before all of us were born. But go ahead. What's your name, young man? Josh, go for it.
What's your favorite moment as a player in all your years of playing?
Favorite moment as a player in all your years playing?
There are a lot of moments, a lot of ups and downs, but my favorite, and I won't say from each one, but I'll say my favorite moment was beating Mexico in the World Cup. That one stands out beyond anything else, because that was also my last game against Mexico, so I have that for life. No matter what, anyone says, no matter the results, U.S. Mexico, I can say my last game against Mexico was in the World Cup, winning 2-0.
That's it. All about how you finish. All about how you finish. All right, we're going to take one last question. Yes. The hardest player that you've ever had to face?
Let's see. That's difficult. There are a variety of different players. I would say probably one of the most skilled that I saw, that was just like Ronaldinho when I played against him. Just it's so hard to get the ball off of him. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then I would also give you like Zidane. Playing against him, like we would always joke as players that he could open a can of peas with his left foot. Like it just stuck to his foot, and he was just so difficult to play against. Those are two that I could give you off the top of my head. Wait, really quick, can we just get one of this?
Yeah, of course.
We're waiting. Yeah, you're welcome.
What's your name? Eric, go for it, buddy. Who do you think is the greatest player of all time? Is Cobi Jones an option, or just putting that out there?
Yeah, outside of me, of course,
Yes.
right? Let's see, greatest player of all time. that's always difficult. Somewhere people are screaming Pele and all that stuff. I would have to say, in my experience of what I've seen, and that's one thing that I think everybody has to remember, it's always who you see, right? So what I seen was Maradona. I think for him, it was absolutely ridiculous how he played. And I know a lot of people are probably saying, oh, how can you not say Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi? You know, but those are the players that we see now. And you have to realize that also in that day, look at the games that Maradona had to play. The rules have changed. You have to remember, in the days that Maradona played, you could tackle from behind. You could stand like this and receive a ball, and someone could slide in from behind and take you out and take the ball, and that wasn't a foul. Nowadays, that's a foul. So all the old cats out here, they'll know, like, if you played back then, you could get hit from behind, and that was no problems, and it just made the game that much more difficult. So that's why you see Maradona, I think, was probably the best, just because he also had to be so tough and take hits that a lot of players today probably wouldn't be able to take.
Well, how about you, young lady? You have a question? The last one? I like what you've done with your mask, by the way, but we're just going to do a fashion accessory. I like that. Multitask.
It's good style.
What's your name? Natalia, go for it. What is the best team that you've ever played against?
Well, the best team I ever played against was against Brazil. They consistently put out stellar teams that just find ways to break you down and have so much talent. The one that comes into mind for me was during the '94 World Cup. You know, when you're talking about Romario, Bebeto, you know, up top Dunga, you know, in the middle, they just controlled the game. And even, you know, when they go down a player, they can still dominate you and just kind of move you around all over.
Now, Cobi, I got a quick question for you. One last question. Yeah. I'm a big fan of our last two questions right here. I think we should hook them up with some MLS tickets to a match of their choice. You feel good about that? You okay with that? You okay passing the ball, getting the assist there?
I feel good about that. I think they deserve it.
Good job. All right, you guys are going to see Kelly. You can choose. You want to go here? You want to go somewhere? You're going to go to any MLS stadium. 2 tickets, one for you, one for her. Parents going to have to figure it out and just fork over some dough and buy some. But I'm sure we can make it happen. And without further ado, we're not quite done yet. Cobi Jones is going to be here for the meet and greet, saying hello to each and every one of you, the fans here at Beats, Cleats, and Eats. If you're getting social, make sure you share it. #Beats, Cleats, and Eats. You can hop in line, put a smile on your face.